Welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. The United States have qualified for the 2024 Copa America. Yay! All they had to do was get past Trinidad and Tobago in the quarterfinals of the Nations League in a two-leg affair. I mean, it would have been a problem if they didn't qualify. They are hosting the tournament next summer. I'm actually really excited for it. This is going to be great. And now they also booked their place in the CONCACAF Nations League Semifinals and Finals, which they've now won back-to-back. It's just another thing for them to assert their dominance in CONCACAF and really to play meaningful games on the road to the 2026 World Cup, which they obviously won't get a whole ton because they don't have to qualify. All right, so let's get to the chase. I decided to give out grades for this November window. The scores are out of 10, 10 being the best, 0 being the worst. I've made a little image here with all of the grades, but we are not going to go through all of them. So as you peruse them, you can see some are circled in red. Those are the negatives. Some are circled in green. Those are the positives. Now I have to grade Gregg first because all of his decisions impacted the way the players played. My main criticism of Gregg Berhalter is that this team seems a little bit too predictable, that there's only one real style of play, and that if the personnel changes, it doesn't really look all that cohesive. We also saw that when the United States plays against a high-class opponent, someone a little bit more intricate and intelligent, they can get picked apart. But the good thing about the setup not being too complex is that when the United States is on top and the better team, they really thrive. The trouble is when there is a curveball thrown, what exactly happens? And there were some curveballs, so it was interesting to see what he would do to adapt from the first match to the second. But let's actually take this from the start. With Christian Pulisic and Timothy Weah out, you have your two main wingers not participating, and there aren't really any like-for-like replacements for them in the pool. The pace and power that Weah brings, and really the class that Pulisic brings, without those two, what's the plan? What are you going to do? Do you change the shape and really alter the roles, or do you just kind of keep the same thing you normally roll out and just put two players in those positions and say, do your best? It kind of looked like that's what he did, putting Paredes on the left side where Pulisic normally plays and putting Tillman on the right side where Weah normally plays. It didn't really work. And the reason why is because if they are wingers, you want them nice and wide, isolating themselves one-on-one, dragging at least a player or two out of the middle to be able to serve balls into the box or create overloads with Dest and Robinson who would come forward to help. Another alternative is they could both play as sort of 10s operating in the sort of half space, half channels and allow the wide areas wide open for Dest and Anthony Robinson to bomb into and serve balls in.
What was happening on the left side, we had Paredes who was holding their wing back in position. And then on the right side, because Malik was tilted inside, the wing back was quickly released into surge, and we didn't get much of an advantage on that side. But it still put Malik in some decent positions.
Neither really happened. It seemed in between the two, and they had very little impact at all in the first half of that game. So a man up going into the second half, Berhalter changes the formation to a 4-2-2-2, where he's asked Tillman to sort of come in and become a second striker.
As we moved towards the second half, the idea was to get Rico on and really condense the space in the penalty box, have two guys that can challenge for crosses, have guys ready for knockdowns, and get the ball in the box quicker.
Now, the U.S. were not really breaking through very much. Robinson and Dest were bombing forward, serving balls into the box. But there wasn't a lot going on, and as the match dragged on, you wondered, is this going to be a 0-0? And then Gregg made some substitutions that worked very well. On came Aronson and Pepe for Paredes and Tillman, and their impact was pretty much immediate. Aronson was very dynamic. He was getting the ball in the half turn, hit one shot wide, got on the end of a header from across from Dest. It was looking pretty good. Pepe came on to assist Balogun, so now you have two center forwards in the box. And Pepe is the one that came up with the winner, getting a little cute back heel at the near post. And that just got things going for the U.S. The tension was released. Anthony Robinson would score a little bit after on a deflected effort. And Gio Reyna had a nice little combination with Balogun. I'm not sure Balogun's pass was intended that way. I think he may have actually mishit it, but Reyna did well to get on the end of it and score. So, look, you've got to give credit to Gregg in the sense that the subs he brought on immediately changed and won the game. There's no doubt about that. But the issue is, did he get the whole thing right from the start? And was the change at halftime, planned, or was it just kind of some idea? When you need a goal and you have Balogun on the field, taking him off for Pepe doesn't seem to make all that much sense, especially when you're a man up. You'd rather have two players like that in there. So that's what Gregg did. It just kind of makes sense, and it ended up working. Did I just stumble upon some genius idea? And that's kind of what it feels like. That's exactly what it felt like, especially after watching the second match. So anyway, the U.S. win leg one 3-0 and are in total command of the tie. They would need to lose by 4 clear goals in the second leg to not advance and make it to Copa America. So that was pretty much out of the question. The other problem for Gregg Berhalter, Weston McKennie injured his ankle in that first match, so he had to pull out of the side. That meant Luca de la Torre could get a run. Now we went with obviously Matt Turner in goal, the same back line as the first game with Ream, Carter Vickers in the middle, and then Destin Robinson on the sides. Musa kept his place in the middle, Balogun kept his place at center forward, but Pepe joined him, and Aronson joined Reyna as the 2 attacking midfielders. And so we saw the 4-2-2-2 again. Now, it seemed to be working just fine, I guess. Anthony Robinson scoring on a header. This is a great window for him, but you'd imagine that those balls into the box were kind of meant for either Balogun or Pepe. And they were both very quiet in terms of the chances they were getting on the end of. It was kind of stale. So the U.S. is up 1-0, and you're thinking, okay, we'll see how this rolls into the second half. And in the 38th minute, Dest has a total moment of madness, and the game just kind of turns upside down. Dest's red card changes the tactical plan. Now, Gregg would have obviously loved to be able to just get to halftime, but he had to figure out what to do. They took off Reyna, put on Scally so that they could keep it back 4, and then they conceded. Carter Vickers not doing a very good job. And the shot goes high near post. Turner probably should save it, and it's 1-1 at halftime. So they do need a solid plan for the second half, and Gregg Berhalter went with a 4-3-2, which I guess worked fine. Trinidad and Tobago did not have very many chances at all. They did score another goal. We'll get to that one in a bit as well. And overall, the game just fizzled out. This is what happens when there's a red card. As a coach, your plan sort of goes out the window, and you kind of have to just batten down the hatches. So if there were minutes he wanted to give to other players later in the game, he kind of just had to chuck a lot of that out. So as I said, it's hard to criticize Gregg for the decisions he made after the red card. What surprised me is that he actually came out after the game and explained that the 4-2-2-2 was not planned before the first game, and that they didn't actually train it before the second match.
Yeah, we actually didn't train it at all. What'd you say? We came up with the idea, match day -1 yesterday, and with training in Trinidad, we were concerned about people seeing it, so we didn't train it, but we talked to them about it. And I think in general, for the first 35 minutes, it was working as planned. One was coming, one was going. Nice interactions with the 10s in the pocket, fullbacks getting forward. Our goal was actually fullback to fullback. So overall, pleased with it, but I wish we would have had a bigger body of work to go on because after the red card, it was more challenging.
And that's what concerns me, is that Gregg had come into this camp missing 2 very important players in his wingers, Weah and Pulisic. And instead of coming up with a different idea, a different plan, and practicing it before the first game, he said, we're going to do the normal thing. It didn't really work. He comes up with some idea because he doesn't want to take off Balogun. So he makes sure Pepe gets on the field. They score, they win. He's like, oh, well, cool. Let's try that in this next game. That's the part that kind of bothers me. It feels a little too ad hoc, too much shooting from the hip. And look, I am not a Gregg hater. I'm not a Gregg lover. I don't really care. I want to see this team do well, of course, but I don't think dogging on the coach all the time makes much sense. It's very hard to be an international manager. You don't have much time to work on patterns of play. And then when important key guys are missing, you've got to revolutionize things in a little way. I'd like to see him be bolder to try and find new ways to put in different players in different positions and have different formations that you can do. What Gregg did made a lot of sense, and I think it is an option for the U.S. going forward. But for me, the way he arrived at this decision, not really high level or elite. Stumbling upon something like this in an international camp between 2 games, I don't know about that. So Gregg gets a 6 out of 10 for leg 1, a 5 out of 10 for leg 2. It doesn't tell us a whole lot new at all, but maybe he did get something out of this that he previously didn't have before. All right, moving on to the players. Let's start with the baddies, the guys who didn't really do well, and then we'll finish with the more positive performances. 3 players who did not help themselves. Now, even though none of them are actually in any danger of losing their place in the team, at least yet, this was not good, and it was the kind of thing that gives you concern for the future. So the first one's Matt Turner. Absolutely nothing to do in the first leg, really, but I do give him a 7 out of 10 because he did well. He played with urgency, which is clearly what he was asked to do to keep the ball rolling and not slow things down. But in the second leg, Matt Turner gets a 2 out of 10 for me. Look, it may seem harsh, but goalkeepers cannot let in bad goals, especially not more than one. The first one is a pretty good finish. It's up really high, rifled into the roof of the net. But as a goalkeeper at the post, you do not want to go down low, just assuming they're going to try and go through your legs, and then just have them go over you. But the second goal is a shocker. I mean, it's a bomb of a free kick from a long way out, but Turner basically pads it into the upper corner. I think he should easily save this, and it is concerning because he had that horrific mistake for Nottingham Forest. We came out hunting for butterflies, didn't catch any, gets scored on, and then loses his place. So he is now no longer starting for Nottingham Forest. He's not going to lose his place in the U.S. national team because, luckily for him, Zach Steffen is sitting on the bench as the third goalkeeper for Man City. But Matt Turner also needs to start playing so that someone else doesn't come up, like even Horvath or Gaga Slolina. Look, Matt Turner has done a fantastic job as U.S. goalkeeper. This is the first time we're seeing a real wobble. The hope is that he buries this, puts it behind him, and reaches new heights as opposed to goes downhill and declines. All right, moving on. Fuller and Balogun. I gave him a 3 out of 10 and a 4 out of 10. But this was a disappointing window from a player who many have looked at as the missing piece to the puzzle for the U.S.'s dynamic and killer attack for the next few years. He scored a goal against Ghana that got people gushing so much they were saying no other forward in the U.S. pool has the class to finish like this. I thought that was a little over the top. But the problem here is he was so anonymous. Over 180 minutes. Now, look, the second leg, obviously, he has way less service as soon as the red card happens. Prior to the red card, in that second leg, he was not very good. And I think the damning thing is when the team is dominating so heavily in that first leg, and he gets very few touches and almost no chances, and then his pretty much direct competition comes on and quickly scores, that's not really a good look. So hopefully this is just a bad window for Balogun, and he's able to step up in the future. But I think this did serve as a notice to people. He's not going to just be able to pick the team up on his shoulders and score mad goals. He doesn't create a whole lot by himself, and I think that is a little bit problematic. All right, let's wrap up with Sergiño Dest, the obvious one. It's really too bad because in the first leg, I gave him an 8 out of 10. He was great. He and Anthony Robinson were the outlets. They were the ones creating the majority of the chances. Turns out he was supposed to come off at halftime of the second leg. Joe Scally was going to replace him, and all was going to be good. Everyone was going to say, hey, Sergiño, great job. But then he completely loses his mind in the 38th minute. To pick up the ball and just punt it up into the sky and into the stands? What the hell? I mean, that was bizarre. It was strange to see, and the ref is obviously going to give a yellow card for that. Now, Dest was pissed, apparently mad that there was a certain foul that had not been called previously. Okay, fine. He's yelling at the referee, putting his hands over his face, but it seems like he's going to get away with just the yellow card, starts walking away, turns around, and does a double kiss blow to the referee. Absolutely mindless, unprofessional, gets another yellow card and gets sent off. And then the way he leaves the field, he just sort of walks around, and then you've got Robinson, Ream, and Turner going up to him and be like, dude, what are you doing? Get off the field, man.
Yeah, guys, it could be up for either of you. Did Sergiño explain what made him so angry? There didn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary, so far out of the ordinary as to produce what we saw.
No, there was no explanation. The best guess that we have is he thought there was a foul down in the attacking half, and then maybe felt that the ball didn't go out of play on the ball that I played over to him. But I don't think either one of those really warrant the reaction that came.
Thanks. Tim, I wonder, obviously I saw you had words with Sergiño on the field. What was said at halftime? What do you say to him, even after the game to try to move the team forward or try to move forward with him? And how does that process go now for Sergiño with the group?
Yeah, I think words with him would be putting it nicely, to be completely honest with you. And there were a lot of choice words had at halftime, but yeah, there's not too many things that I can say here publicly that we said privately.
Wow. So look, I coach kids from 5 years old all the way up to a high school varsity team. If any of our varsity players did that, I don't know if they'd be able to rebuild the trust in us for us to play them again. Now, as for the little ones, I can maybe come up with 3 or 4 off the top of my head who might have that kind of meltdown. But they're little kids. They are not elite professionals. From Sergiño Dest, this is embarrassing. Now, Gregg fielded 4 questions on this topic in the post-match press conference and did nip it in the bud well, saying, look, I don't want to turn this into a witch hunt. He's a young player. He's an important player in this group, and we have to move on. So he's apologized, said it won't happen again. But damn, Serginho Dest. I mean, he got red carded in the Nations League last year against Mexico. His temperament might be an issue. There may be teams who see him as someone that you can prod and poke at and hopefully get to lose his nerve. So I gave him a 0 out of 10 in the second game, 2 out of 10 overall. Look, he did well in the first leg and showed why he is so important to this team. But he cannot be doing stuff like that. Okay, let's move on to the positive performances and wrap it up. So I'm going to start with the midfield first leg combination of McKennie and Reyna. So I give them both 8 out of 10s for that first game. McKennie was the energy driver. He actually drew the 2 yellow cards that led to the sending off. He was also brought down in the box and given a penalty, which was very strangely overturned by VAR. I get the call was debatable, but I don't know about overturning it. It didn't look anywhere clear and obvious enough of a mistake for the referee to call away the penalty. So McKennie did have a massive impact in that game. He really is an important player for this team, not just with what he does in terms of his energy and running around, but he really has some leadership qualities that make him a driving force in this midfield, and he is looking more and more indispensable to this team as they go forward. So Reyna scored the third goal in the first leg, and he did a very good creative job. But I think overall, what I want to point out is his attitude. That's actually the thing I was most impressed with. We all know he's a really talented player, but after scoring the third goal in that first leg, he wasted no time with the celebration or anything. He just wanted to get the ball back to the center circle to score again. It is a two-leg affair. The more goals you score at home, the better off and safer you will be away. On top of that, he was the first person on the scene to try and calm down Serginho Dest after his meltdown in the second leg. Now, Reyna was substituted immediately in the aftermath of that. He was only going to play 45 minutes anyway. But what we have seen from him in 2023 after what happened at the World Cup and the whole entire fallout U.S. soccer had because of it, this is quite an impressive turnaround. It's what we expect from a guy. Learn from your mistakes, get better. And a player with this kind of talent is crucial to the pool. So if he's growing up, this is fantastic. The next is Anthony Robinson, and what a week for him. 2 assists and 1 goal, so a hand in 3 out of the 4 U.S. goals scored this November camp. In the first leg, he has a curler that's deflected, goes in, looks nice, does a great celebration with a handspring and a backflip. Second leg, look, defensively, he had to do what he had to do because they were down to 10 men, but he's the one that got the goal, getting in and heading in across. Overall, he is just a class defender. He is so dynamic. He gives an insurance policy in the back because of his speed, and going forward, he's pretty good, and he is dangerous. It'd be nice to see him get a few more goals and get in on the back post more often, but Anthony Robinson is crucial to this team, and he showed it again in this window. The last one, Ricardo Pepi. So look, didn't make the World Cup squad and hung up on Gregg when he got the news, but he's come back very well. He escaped Augsburg, which is good. Now he's at PSV Eindhoven. He's getting some time. He's scoring some goals. And he has shown to be a really good super sub. That's not exactly what he wants to be. He wants to be able to start. But this window, his performances really did call into question whether or not Balogun really should be the nailed-on starting number 9. Because Pepi was more impactful than Balogun. Gregg did not want to take off Balogun when they were still searching for a goal in the first leg, but he wanted to get Pepi on. And by scoring, getting the winner, and opening the floodgates, Pepi did give Gregg a question. What are you going to do for the second leg? Start me or him? And that's where Gregg went, well, I'd like to start both of you, and we had both of you guys on the field last game. Ipso facto, let's just do it again, eh? My point is that Ricardo Pepi's performance forced Gregg into figuring out some kind of new solution. That's a powerful thing for him to take away. So he was withdrawn from Malik Tillman. He didn't have a great game, but I think he really did acquit himself in a much more positive fashion than, say, Balogun did in this window. So that's the November camp. The U.S. is officially qualified for the Copa America this summer. It's going to be great. I'm excited to follow that around. How much did we learn? Look, we get little bits every single time they play, and hopefully by the time 2026 rolls around, this team is fully ready. Until then, thanks for stopping by. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. Take it easy.